Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Dawes, and I'm the executive director at The City, which is a local news outlet here in New York. And I came to this job from roles in journalism around the world. I was an investigative and political reporter in South Africa, and I ultimately became the editor-in-chief of a national newspaper out of Johannesburg called the Mail and Guardian. And after doing that work, I worked in India, in Delhi, where I was the chief content officer at Hindustan Times, a huge media company. We used to print over 2 million print papers per day in 24 different cities. And I really tried to work there to build a more digital approach. Before I came to the United States, where I worked briefly in the human rights field, and then came back to my first love of journalism. So you could ask, why do we need a new local news organization in New York? There is so much media here. We have giants like the New York Times. We have global and national broadcasters situated here. We have wire agencies. Why do we need to add more local coverage? But the sad truth is that reporting about what's really going on in the city at a local level has steadily been eroding over the last 10 years. There is far less coverage of what's going on in New York City neighborhoods. There is far less coverage of what's happening in City Hall. And New York has a budget of over $100 billion that gets spent every year. There's also far less coverage of what's happening at the state and federal level in the way that it affects the lives of ordinary New Yorkers. So we were really created to start to fill that gap and to fill it with stories that come up from New York neighborhoods at a very local level, with investigative journalism, with explanation and tools to help navigate the city, and with really well data-informed reporting on what's going on in New York, be it political or social. So it's very important to us that we are adding meaningful value to the civic conversation in New York and helping to enrich New York's democracy. And our choices are firstly guided by that principle. But that doesn't mean we only report on politics or only do investigative and accountability reporting. We have three real pillars to the way we work. And one of the most important is that we listen to our audience. We convene public meetings and we take input from ordinary New Yorkers, especially in neighborhoods with less media and less attention, and hear about what is troubling them. We also have decided to address some serious gaps left by other media. So we have a strong investigations team that looks at City Hall and looks at government policy in New York and tries to choose stories that can really meaningfully have impact and that can change people's lives for the better. So that's a powerful filter for us. And then finally, we want to make New York easier to navigate, live in, and understand, whether it's in political terms or in other aspects of life. So we try to create a large amount of explanatory reporting and data-informed reporting that guides people through difficult processes, which can be about voting, for example, or which can be about how to secure yourself in your apartment if you're worried about being evicted, or how to access special education services for your child. And we try to create resources for those subjects that are very accessible, easy to understand, and empowering for our readers. So those three pieces all inform each other and drive the choices that we make editorially. So we really want to build resources for people that help them in their lives. And we want to do that not only based on our insight, but what they tell us. That can be very simple. If people ask us, how do I get help with possible eviction or government assistance with my rent? The answer might be we create a simple explainer and a newsletter that can update you on all of those issues. And we find that the questions people ask us, other people are asking Google search. And so those articles come back and back and back in our results. People are using them for months or years even after we first publish them. We also build more complex tools, like, for example, to explain a very complicated election with 14 different candidates and a difficult to understand ranking system for the vote. We build a big database of policy positions and use that to power a quiz game that results in a voter's guide that you can literally print out and take into the voting booth with you, or share with your friends and have a good discussion. So these are ways to put the user and their needs at the center of our local coverage and really empower them, which we also think builds trust and builds deeper engagement with our product. Many people have questions about the nonprofit journalism model. How do your donations affect your journalism? How do your subscriptions or your membership affect your journalism? And for us, it's very clear. We have a very strong editorial mission that we want to do independent journalism that serves the people of New York. And that's what drives our newsroom choices. We will only go to philanthropists to say, this is what we do. If it aligns with your interests, please support it. But we do not have any editorial involvement of our philanthropic donors. Our members who give small donations are people with whom we have a bit more of a relationship than maybe with a general reader. So we will answer their questions and we take into account what some of their interests are. But again, that doesn't affect our day-to-day journalism choices. It's a way to relate more deeply to the community. So we really try to keep all the pieces of our funding model and our editorial very, very clearly separate. And we have to do that to be successful. Another thing that's a big part of the city's model is partnership and working with others. We don't want to duplicate what other people are doing. We can't build all of the expertise in all of the areas, but we have really phenomenal expertise on New York City. So what we often do is to work very closely and deeply with other news organizations that share our values. And that can mean that they actually put one of their reporters in our newsroom for as long as a year. And we will co-edit the project and co-manage the member of staff. We've done that with ProPublica. We have a long ongoing project about children's mental health and hospitals with a ProPublica staffer in our newsroom. We had for a year a reporter from the Fuller Project, which focuses on women's issues in the workplace, in government, who really was edited by our editors for a year, but brought her expertise in gender reporting. We're working on gun violence with The Trace, which specializes in that topic, and criminal justice with the Marshall Project that specializes in that topic. So in this way, we can combine our local expertise, our local relevance and audience with the power of some of these national organizations that have really topic-specific insights. And we can get results that are much bigger than either of us operating alone. Well, it can feel a very long way from New York City to northern Greece, but I know that we share many of the same challenges and we have a lot to learn from each other in both directions. So it's really wonderful for me to have the opportunity to be here with you, even if only virtually today. Thank you for listening and have a great meeting.